we had a lot of fun there. When we got old enough, we got up into junior high school, and we learned to dance, and both Keith and I loved to dance. My oldest sister Joy, she was a great dancer. We used to dance.
Do you remember your first dance?
Yeah, I remember the first dance. About the first dance I had a date was the graduation from junior high school, and this is awful, but I I was not very experienced with the female creatures, and I kind of had a crush on this little gal. Her name was Frances Nichols, and I asked her to go to the prom with me. Well, of course I was too young to drive, so I forget exact. I think my brother, he was driving. No, he wasn't driving yet either. But anyway, long story short, I chickened out at the last minute and I stood her up.
So you didn't show up to the dance.
She didn't get to go to the graduation. And later on, many years later, after Joyce and I were married, we went to one of my high school reunions. There you go. And Frances was there. I hadn't seen her in probably 20 years. And she came up to me, and she had a funny grin on her face. And she says, "Hi, Norm, you don't remember me, do you?" And I looked at her and I said, "Refresh my memory." She says, "Frances Nichols." I got so embarrassed, I didn't know what to do. But I remember then. So anyway, she was a great sport about it, and she laughed, and we had a good conversation and everything. But your grandpa wasn't exactly a Don Juan in those days.
A Don Juan.
Yeah, but
What was you were talking about junior high? What was junior high like?
when junior high was our school was grade school was first through the sixth grade, and then we went seventh, eighth, and ninth
Okay.
was junior high, and then 10th, 11th, and 12th for high school. We had a 3-year junior high. Yeah, that's the way it was set up in Oregon at that time. That was a statewide. Well, the rural schools didn't. They had first to the 8th grade, and most of them, the rural schools were. My cousins, who lived out in the boonies, they were. They went to a one-room schoolhouse, and that's what most of them were, because they were scattered all over the country, and that was a lot of fun. We used to go up on our spring vacation. They never got spring vacation, but we used to go up, my brother and I, and spend a week during spring vacation, and we'd go to school with my cousins. And one of my oldest cousin, Dale, he was the same age as Keith, and he was the school janitor. I think he got $25 a month, I think it was. And he had to get there half an hour early and start the fire. It was built. It was warmed by just a big old pot-bellied stove.
So everybody would show up in one room, and the lesson would be taught. And when you're on vacation, you're literally showing up. You just show up and go to school with your cousins.
Well, we really were just guests. Actually, we didn't. We went ahead and like the reading and all that stuff.
And they let you right in. They let you right in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But we were just kind of like visitors, and they she'd bring in extra chairs, and we'd sit back there with, she'd correct us just like we were one of her students. She had to do a lot of that because my two cousins were pretty rank out.
And did you kind of? I mean, you were probably like more inclined to go a little ape shit if you're around your cousins and you're in a foreign school. You're like, you're not my teacher.
And it was a whole different world. That was the thing that was nice about that I've always liked about my youth was we had the kind of niceties, if you will, of city life, but all of my relatives were rural people. All lived in the country. My uncles, most of my uncles were loggers. My dad was a logger at one time, but anyway, and so they all lived out in the boonies, and there wasn't even an organized village. My aunt, my dad's sister, the mother of these two cousins I was talking about, she was the postmistress at Diston, Oregon, and that's basically all there was. There was their house, and there was a couple others across the road, and then they also owned the grocery store. That's where the post office was, in the grocery store, and they had a gas pump. So that was Uncle John, and he was a timber faller, but he'd gotten hurt in the woods, and he was no. You don't need anything you've eaten, and you just need to be a good boy. But he helped Aunt Lena in the post office, and it was up above, about 15 miles above Diston, up in the mountains. It's a range of the Cascades, a branch of the Cascade Mountains, and they call it the Bohemians. And it was a mining country. There was a lot of lead, and there was
Mr. Magoo,
stop it.
Hey, come here. Come here. Mr. Magoo, come here. Hey, come here. Come here. Get over here. Come here. Come here. Come up here. Come here. Oh. All right.
And it was
So say that one more time, because Magoo is kind of going crazy. Yeah. So the mountain area was called the Bohemians. Was that because there was like a bunch of like gypsies up there?
No,
why was it called that?
I don't know why it was named. The name of that little. It isn't the actual main Cascades. Main Cascade Range runs all the way from Southern California. Sierra Madre in California is part of the Cascade Range. Runs all through Oregon, up through Washington, clear up into Canada. But there's an offshoot of those. Some mountains, just like a river almost. The mountains will branch off, and this particular one, there was a name. They named it the Bohemias, and they were still a lot of miners up there working. None of them ever got rich, but they'd rather mine than log. Logging was really tough, real hard work. But and there was a lot of characters. I mean, we'd be playing out in the front, out front of their place. Maybe we were playing in the field, playing with the horses. I don't know, whatever we did. And I remember this one old guy. We'd hear this whistling, real loud, shrill whistle. And this was an old miner coming down the mountain, and he had a pet parrot, and that goddamn parrot would sit on he was an old touring car, and they had no top on it, just a windshield. He'd sit up on that windshield and facing right into the wind, and he just whistled up. You could hear that sucker coming for miles. And the guy was, they were all, they were all hicks, great people, but none of them educated. They didn't know how to speak the King's English. They just had all kinds of crazy sayings and stuff. That I could just sit and listen to them talk for hours.
Did you go to school with any of those people?
No.
No?
No.
They were all up in the mountains?
They're all up in the hills, and
Okay.
Many of them didn't even go to school.
And that's probably why they were coming up with all these words and stuff.
Yeah, and they did a lot of they did a lot of stuff. They would go out and collect burls off of old trees. A lot of because it was in those days it was a lot of old growth, which were really old trees, and a lot of them were all knurled up around all the bottom with burls, like maple burls, and it's beautiful wood when you turn it into a bowl or something, and they would go up and of course they'd probably get shot for doing it today, but in those days they didn't think too much about. If you were hungry and needed some meat, go out and kill a deer, and that's the way they lived. And they did the same thing with if there was something, a tree they wanted, or they wanted to get it down, they'd fall the damn thing and cut the burls off of it, or leave it standing and cut the burls off. A lot of times you would go out in the brush, you'd see a big old fir tree, maybe was not uncommon at all to see them 12, 15 feet across. I mean, two men had to have great big, they had what they call buckboards, and they'd cut a notch in the tree and slide these boards in there, and then the fallers would climb up and get on the buckboards with this great huge manual handsaw that some of them were 20 feet long. And they handsaw those big old trees. I've seen lots of them fell that way, and so when those trees are that old, you could cut all those burls off, and really it'd be just like cutting burning warts off of your hand or something.
It doesn't even affect the tree at all.
Didn't hurt him at all for lumber.
Did when were you first? Because I feel like when were you first introduced to like woodworking and stuff and all that? Were you introduced to that as a kid, or not at all until later in life?
Not until I got into high school.
Okay.
And I started taking shop, and I got interested in that.
So tell me about in junior high. What are some other? I want to hear some more memories from junior high. What else do you remember? What are some? I remember you telling me how you would sneak into the movie theater through the window. You'd have one person pay.
Well, we did that for years. Yeah. Well, as far as a junior high, as far as any thing special happening, I did take a metalworking class that I liked very much, but I liked woodworking better, and I didn't do that till I got into high school.
Okay.
But in junior high, it was just we were just kind of in betweeners.